Hi guys, I'm Woodcraft Hamster and I thought I'd just do a really quick video for you today. Now, a couple of weeks ago one of my subscribers asked how I store wood that's been freshly harvested if I'm not using it straight away. And what I thought I would do is just very briefly show you what it is that I do. I'll also give you a couple of other methods that I know other people use to varying degrees of success. Some people swear by them, some I've tried and didn't get on with. Others I've never tried, so just to sort of give you a few more options. So this little haul here, if you watched last week's video, we took a nice little cycle ride out to my local woodland, harvested some of this wood, and what I'm going to show you is what it is I do to try and keep this green for as long as possible. Now the question that I got was what are carrier bags? Now, for those of us in the UK, I think that's it's a fairly simple answer. But obviously, for people from overseas, which this subscriber was, the term is not used over there. So very simply, anything like this, any kind of plastic bag. Generally what I term as a carrier bag. These are kind of fairly common over here in the UK. This is a kind of a fairly thick one. You can get thinner versions as well. On top of that, things like this, bin liners, any kind of plastic bag type object tends to be what I use. And there's a couple of reasons for that. You can use paper, you can use cardboard boxes, plastic boxes, that kind of thing. The reason I favour bags over anything else is that it's very easy to pile loads of stuff in there. It's very easy to scrunch up the top and kind of make the air hole essentially bigger or smaller as you choose. And I like plastic because plastic retains moisture a lot better than paper and cardboard. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to retain the moisture that's in the wood at the same time as allowing some of it to escape, and the size of the air hole is you controlling how much of that escapes from the bag. As an example, if I just move that for now, so I will take a piece like this, it will go in this bag, and I can leave the top completely open if I'm not too worried about it drying out much. I can scrunch it down until there's almost no hole at all. That's really slowing down the drying process, and this is what I'll do generally in summertime. Winter time I can sort of leave it a little bit more open, maybe sort of half open, that kind of thing. The black bin liner you saw just a second ago, that's what I've been keeping this in. And the really important part here, guys, is that you need to change your bags regularly. Now the reason for that is you get a lot of moisture build up on the inside wall of the bag, and what I tend to do is once a week generally I will remove everything from the bag, leave it spread out like this for maybe half an hour to an hour to allow any surface moisture to evaporate, and then I'll put it either in a fresh bag, or if I haven't got one I'll turn the other one inside out and then put it into sort of the fresh inside part. And that's really all I do. The only difference being, and I'll show you this now, I split this down just before I started this video. Now if you're splitting down like this, that will speed up the drying process. The reason being is there is more surface area. So when you've got a log like this, with the bark still on, really the only places that moisture escapes from, or the majority where the moisture escapes from, is the two ends here. If you split it in half or quarters or whatever, you are increasing the surface area where the moisture can escape from. The quicker something dries, the more prone it is to splitting, certainly in terms of wood. And that's what we're trying to prevent. Slightly different if you take a brand new green piece of wood and you make a spoon out of it there and then what you're trying to do is prevent the spoon itself from splitting. And I use the same method. I put it into a plastic bag. I'll usually put a handful of fresh shavings in there as well if it's a half finished project, and that's where these kind of bags tend to come into play. If I'm just storing an amount of wood, I will leave it in something like a bin liner. Now, I said I was going to mention a few other topics while we were talking. So one thing I've seen people do, and a lot of people have a lot of success with this, is sealing the ends of the wood. Now, what do we mean by that? You can use several different methods. The two most popular tends to be either wax, just melted wax that's been either brushed or poured on to form a waterproof barrier around the end grain. Alternatively, you can use certain types of paint. I think things like latex paint and stuff like that. Anything that's a waterproof paint essentially will work on something like this. Now, I've tried it a couple of times with wax. It certainly worked, but it was just a bit of a faff when you came to use the piece of wood, scraping it all off and getting bits of wax on your tools. And it's not a huge problem, but it was just a little bit messy for my liking. The other one that gets talked about a lot, and this is the one I haven't really tried, is putting this into the freezer. Now, a lot of people swear by it. You take your fresh piece of wood, you put it in the freezer, you leave it in there until you want to use it, let it thaw out a little bit, and then you start to use it. And what you can do, or certainly what I've been told, is that at every stage of your project, so you've got your round of wood here, you split it down into the blank and you do some very rough shaping, goes back in the freezer. Then you do a bit more detail work, back in the freezer until you're pretty much finished, and then you just need to let it dry out slowly and naturally. And even then I would be looking to put it in some sort of plastic bag or container with some fresh shavings, but that's just my preference. The other one I thought worth mentioning, and again I've never tried this, there's not a lot of information about it that I've been able to find, is leaving your log submerged in water. Now the theory being is that with it being underwater with no access to the air, it shouldn't rot. And I've been told that people have successfully kept logs like this 6 months or more, as long as it's completely covered and sealed under the water. So just a few things to think about, guys. I say my method generally always tends to be the plastic bag route, just because that's what's convenient for me. It's what I've always used, and it works for me. So why try and fix something that's not broken? But you do have those other options as well, and I'd be really interested to know from you guys if you've got any personal experience with what you do to try and keep this kind of wood fresh. What works for you? And if anything that might help out others. So I hope it was useful, guys. Like I say, just a short video today. Comments and questions in the box below. Hit like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I hope you'll all join me next time. Thanks, guys.